Great Scott! Hello out there, all you beautiful internet people. It's currently October 22nd, and you know what that means. It's Christopher Lloyd's birthday. As of today, Christopher Lloyd is 85. He's one of the oldest actors in the biz, one of the most prolific character actors. Well, this is being filmed a couple months ahead of time, so if it is October 22nd and Christopher Lloyd has died, then that's too bad. But I'm pretty sure he's hung in there for another year, if my calculations are correct, towards the future. He'll knock off with the time travel bits for now, but needless to say, I'm pretty sure Christopher Lloyd is 85. I doubt he'll die between the time this video is filmed and the time it comes out. He's hung in pretty well there for the past couple decades, so he's still going strong. Anyway, needless to say, Christopher Lloyd is an immensely respectable actor who all too often does not get his due credit. So today, I've decided to count down the top 5 Christopher Lloyd roles. Now, this list, I'm going to come right out the gate and say it, it's not going to include any of the terrible movies that Christopher Lloyd has been in, such as Food Fight, The Oogie Loves, or Sid the Science Kid the movie, or Baby Geniuses. And it's also not going to include Judge Doom from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, because I'm going to be honest with you here, Who Framed Roger Rabbit is a really crummy movie. The really smooth animation is really the only positive aspect of it. Aside from that, it's just an abysmal film with abysmal characters and an abysmal script, and even Christopher Lloyd's sorry presence can't save it. With all that said, let's get right into the action and talk about the top 5 Christopher Lloyd roles. At number 5, we have a role you might not have seen coming. You might have been ready for Switchblade Sam from Dennis the Menace, or you might have been ready for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. But we're talking Zoltan from Radioland Murders. Radioland Murders is a charming 1994 screwball send-up, which I think is Lucasfilm's most underrated project. And I maintain that. Radioland Murders got a bad reception upon release, but it really is a great film, and I maintain that it's one of George Lucas's best, and of course, who can forget Christopher Lloyd as Zoltan, the eccentric sound designer. Zoltan is, of course, a precursor to all the great Foley artists of our day, and he's a great character, kind of a Nikola Tesla mashup. It's crazy just how much presence Zoltan has, considering he's only in a couple shots of Radioland Murders. But he's a great gosh darn character, and you might not even notice it's Christopher Lloyd. Fun fact, Christopher Lloyd agreed to have all his shots just filmed in one day. So if you watch the movie and pay close attention, you'll notice that Zoltan is actually never in frame with any other actors. His shots are always filmed separately. It's kind of weird, but it definitely makes for a fun little dynamic. And I like how at the end, when the murderer is revealed, you think for a second, oh my gosh, it's Zoltan. Oh wow, it's Zoltan. But it's not Zoltan. Zoltan was innocent. Justice for Zoltan. At number 4, we have another charming role, this being Christopher Lloyd's most recent, or one of his most recent, David Mansell in Nobody. I, for one, really like Nobody. This is not only a movie that treats Christopher Lloyd with a lot of decorum and respect, but single-handedly saved Bob Odenkirk's career. Quite frankly, I think Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul belong in the fucking dumpster. They're terrible shows, they're not funny, they're not interesting, they're just about some meth lab. What a boring story. Now here comes Nobody, an epic action thriller about Hutch Mansell and his one-man vendetta of violence and gore and action against a Russian oligarchy. Doesn't that sound way more interesting than some sleazy lawyer with his stupid theme song? Saul Goodman quivers in his little lawyer shoes against the might that is Hutch Mansell. What a well-written character. David Mansell, Hutch's father, played masterfully by Christopher Lloyd, is easily one of the best parts of the film. And the first time I watched Nobody in theaters, I didn't even notice it was Christopher Lloyd until like halfway through, and then I was like, holy shit, that old guy in the chair who just sits and eats TV dinners and watches TV all day in the retirement home is Christopher Lloyd. This movie frickin' rocks. This movie is frickin' awesome. Why isn't Bob Odenkirk in more quality shit instead of just all this Better Call Saul and Bob and David nonsense? Put him in a real movie where he can actually apply his talents as an actor and comedian. Anyway, needless to say, Christopher Lloyd is definitely one of the best parts of the film, and I especially like the epic final shootout where Christopher Lloyd doesn't even take a single scratch. He just walks through that empty warehouse, guns a-blazing, completely unscathed, and you just go, man, Christopher Lloyd is still keeping at it. Christopher Lloyd is an unstoppable machine, and this is the kind of role that makes me hopeful that Christopher Lloyd is definitely going to be in at least a few more quality pictures during his career, for sure. At number 3, you saw this coming, Professor Plum from Clue.
He's dead!
From the Clue board game adaptation. Let's be honest with ourselves, every time you've ever played Clue, you've wanted to play as Professor Plum. Really, who plays as Mr. Green or Miss Scarlet or any of those? You want Professor Plum. Now here comes the Clue movie, where the best character in the board game, hands down, is played by one of the best actors of all time. Holy shit, does Christopher Lloyd absolutely nail Professor Plum. I really like Tim Curry's butler character, and I think Colonel Mustard is also good, for the record. But Professor Plum frickin' steals the show. Every single line that comes out of Professor Plum is a golden nugget. Now, much like the other characters in Clue, Professor Plum is fundamentally broken, and he's not meant to be a sympathetic character by any stretch of the imagination. By design, everyone in Clue is an unsympathetic bastard who you want to see fail and get arrested. But that doesn't mean that Professor Plum doesn't get some great lines in and have some great screen time, and his frickin' plum color suit is some icon shit. Professor Plum is a very flawed character with a very corrupt and seedy past, but that's part of the charm, and that's part of what everyone is there for, and that's really an integral part of the puzzle that is Clue. Clue is a great movie, and I think Professor Plum really hits home, and yeah, hands down is the best character in the movie. Leslie Ann Warren, Tim Curry, I mean, it's an all-star cast, but really, when you're up next to frickin' Christopher Lloyd in a plum-colored suit, you're not gonna come out on top. Sorry. It's gonna be Christopher Lloyd, obviously. At number 2 here, we have Uncle Fester from the Addams Family movies.
Quicksand, fumes, toxic waste. It's all ours, Fester. You belong here, old man.
Goddamn, do I like Uncle Fester. I remember reading the original Addams Family comics. They are, I think, and I maintain this, some of the best one-panel comics ever created. Charles Addams has just such a deranged, twisted, sickening sense of humor, which I absolutely like. And Uncle Fester is such a great character. Uncle Fester is the character insert of Charles Addams. Fun fact, he's designed to be kind of the Charles Addams of the bunch, and I can definitely see that. His great coat and his big lumbering presence are iconic, and I think Uncle Fester, played by Christopher Lloyd in both The Addams Family and Addams Family Values, it really is the role of a lifetime. I find it interesting that Uncle Fester is an integral character to both films. He's not just on the periphery. In the first one, He has amnesia, and he's coerced by a seedy group to infiltrate the Addams family. Whereas in the second one, he's kidnapped by his maniacal fiancée. Man oh man, does Uncle Fester really shine in both films, and he's easily the highlight, except for Raul Julia and Angelica Houston, of course, who are both great. But Uncle Fester is the comic relief, as opposed to the steadfast, smoothly running marriage of Gomez and Morticia. Uncle Fester is the wisecracking third wheel who's there to be the bumbling buffoon. The Mamushka scene is epic. The scene where they go down the slide into the vault is epic. Everything about the Addams Family films is fantastic. They're a great duology, just a really great two-movie series that really deserved a third installment but never got one. And now Netflix has made that absolutely garbage Wednesday show. Just another example of an intellectual property that Netflix has mercilessly torn apart and shredded and taken a giant diarrhea dump all over because they don't understand anything, and they probably never will. But damn, if in the 90s Barry Sonnenfeld wasn't the king of the feel-good summer comedy blockbuster, then I don't know who was. Men in Black and Addams Family, I mean, the director is solid gold. Needless to say, though, I think Uncle Fester is, probably one of the best parts of both movies, but there's a lot to like about both movies. So, definitely go in for Uncle Fester and stay for all the amazing prop work and set design and just like everything about both movies. They're great. Number 1. You all saw this coming. My lists are nothing if not predictable. We are talking about Dr. Brown, resident mad scientist of Hill Valley.
You're conducting some sort of weather experiment. That's right.
A role like this is right up there with Luke Skywalker, Indiana Jones, all the best and most well-written fictional characters of the blockbuster movie era, a time when movies were larger than life and populated by people who felt so grandiose and so exaggerative and so exciting that movies were legitimately breathtaking. Back to the Future, I maintain, is easily the best time travel movie ever made, and Dr. Emmett Doc Brown is easily the highlight of all the films. Now don't get me wrong, Marty McFly is a great character and a great protagonist who goes through a worthwhile character arc. But really, I do think it's Doc Brown who single-handedly turned these movies into the cultural staples that they are. Every mannerism, every witticism, every single line is delivered so well, so smoothly, that you cannot not like Dr. Emmett Doc Brown. Doc Brown is a freaking character. He is a great lesson to any aspiring screenwriter or director in how to create a character that the audience wants to follow along with and cannot possibly get bored of. He is in many ways the archetypal mad scientist, and yet there are certain elements of his character that were entirely new for the time and no mad scientist before really had. For instance, he's a charismatic mad scientist, which was a completely new type character at the time. Before that, mad scientists had mostly been portrayed as deranged freaks. But here comes a mad scientist whose invention isn't really nefarious as much as it is needlessly dangerous, and who has an arsenal of fun catchphrases at his disposal, and just bubbles with energy. Dr. Emmett Doc Brown is a testament to the talent of Robert Zemeckis before he started making Mars Needs Moms and The Polar Express and all that garbage back when Robert Zemeckis was respected. Proof positive that Robert Zemeckis can absolutely deliver if left to his own devices and kept out of an animation studio. Needless to say, Rick and Morty can suck ass because it is a trash show and it ruined the legacy of Dr. Emmett Doc Brown. Rick Sanchez is a horrible fucking character, and the fact that anyone saw the pilot episode of Rick and Morty, and went, wow, this is a great show. Let's take a massive piss all over the legacy of one of the best movies ever made with this shitty 5-year-old crayon doodle that takes a big piss all over these characters. Yeah, let's make a whole ass TV show about this. That really is disgusting, and Rick and Morty is a disgusting show, and it makes me want to projectile vomit all over the place. Get Swifty, more like get screwed, you garbage knockoff of Back to the Future, you fucking Futurama wannabe. Why don't you climb back into the cockroach sewer from whence you came, huh, Rick and Morty? Hey, Rick and Morty, you want to keep eating Pringles? Yeah, that's what I thought. Get back in the dumpster there, you swine. I choose not to let the existence of a horrible, horrible character like Rick Sanchez tarnish the legacy of Dr. Emmett Doc Brown, one of the greatest characters ever committed to film. An absolute icon for the ages. Great Scott, I don't know how they found me. Dr. Emmett Doc Brown will stand for decades to come as Christopher Lloyd's best role. So that's my list of the top 5 Christopher Lloyd roles. What are some of your favorite Christopher Lloyd roles? Oddly enough, a lot of Christopher Lloyd movies are definitely worth watching, but aren't talked about much, which is odd considering he really is one of the most talented and versatile character actors in the cinema industry today, and it has been ever since the 80s. So let me know down in the comments what your faves are. Don't say baby geniuses, because I know you're lying. And until next time, that's gonna do it. Sayonara, suckers. Don't need no credit card to ride this train. Don't need no credit card to ride this. Ride. Do 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 do. Do 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 do.